The ache begins in my left shoulder. A dull throb deep in the joint, familiar as the scent of the morning glories climbing the porch trellis. I roll the shoulder back, a dry click echoing in the quiet of the kitchen. A small, dry sound like a twig snapping underfoot. My hand automatically goes to the spot, fingers kneading the muscle, but there is no purchase, no relief to be found. The ache is deeper than that, a thing of bone and sinew. Arthur always tells me not to worry about it. "Just old age setting in, Patty," he says, his voice a low rumble but feels like home. He's right, of course. At 67, a woman is entitled to a few aches. I run my palms down my front, the fabric of my apron a phantom comfort against my hands, and turn back to the stove. The bacon is sizzling, each pop and hiss a note in the kitchen's morning song. The sound is sharp, aggressive, and my stomach gives a low gurgle in response. The smell of rendering fat and salt is overpowering, a rich and hearty perfume. The heat from the cast iron pan radiates outwards, warming my face and chest, a stark contrast to the lukewarm air cycling from the window unit. The air is thick with the promise of another Savannah summer, a heavy, damp warmth that even the rattling window unit can't fully defeat. The window glass is beaded with condensation, blurring the vibrant green of the garden outside into a soft watercolor painting. Outside, the cicadas are already humming their endless tune, a high, electric thrum that vibrates in the teeth. Inside, the only other sound is the solemn tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the hall, a steady heartbeat for the house. The pendulum swing is a flash of brass in the shadows of the hallway. I plate the bacon, laying each strip on a paper towel just so, the way Arthur likes it. The smell of salt and smoke mingles with the dark, chicory scent of the coffee brewing in the percolator. This is the rhythm of our life, the one we have danced to for 45 years. It is a slow and comfortable measure. I pour his coffee, the dark liquid steaming into the morning air. It goes into his favorite teacup, a heavy porcelain thing with a pattern of faded bluebells. I take the cup from its hook. The porcelain is cool and smooth against my fingertips, worn from 1,000 washes. I run my thumb over the pattern, the bluebells now a soft, cloudy shade, their edges blurred by time. There's a fine, spidery crack running from the rim to the handle, a flaw he finds endearing. I trace it now. It feels like a tiny, sharp ravine in the otherwise perfect smoothness of the glaze. He says it gives the cup character. I set it on the table at his usual spot. I stand for a moment in the doorway between the kitchen and the hall, caught in the stillness before the day truly begins. My hands hang loose at my sides, the fingers slightly curled. The silence in the house is a living thing. I can hear the faint, high-pitched hum of the refrigerator's compressor, the groan of the house settling, the distant, muffled rumble of the first bus of the day heading down the main road. The air here, away from the coffee and bacon, tastes different. It is metallic and old, the taste of dust and the old copper pipes that snake through the walls of the house. It is the taste of morning itself before it has been seasoned by activity. I go to fetch the newspaper from the porch. The transition from the house's manufactured cool to the morning's humid embrace is a physical shock, a warm, wet blanket thrown over me. The air smells of damp earth and the sweet, cloying perfume of the gardenias by the steps. As I come back in, I take the small bag of trash from the kitchen can to carry out to the bin before he wakes. The bin lid groans in protest as I lift it. My fingers brush against a cardboard corner. I pull it out. A donut box, white and greasy, from the 24-hour bakery over on the south side. It's tucked beneath last night's chicken bones, a clumsy attempt at concealment. My first thought is simply Arthur, and a smile touches my lips. He's been sneaking sweets again, like a guilty schoolboy. But then, a flicker of something else. Why would he hide it? He's a grown man, and I have never once begrudged him a treat. The thought that he feels he needs to conceal something so simple from me is a small, sharp sting. Maybe he is embarrassed about his diet again. Dr. Evans was rather firm with him at his last checkup. But that is not Arthur's way. He would have laughed off the doctor's warnings, patted his generous belly, and declared that a man needs substance. This method, this clumsy hiding in the trash, feels like more than just embarrassment. It feels like a genuine secret. But what a silly secret to keep. The image of my large 68-year-old husband sneaking out for a midnight donut is too ridiculous to be sinister. It is sweet. I decide it is sweet. I smile to myself. Arthur and his sweet tooth. I'll tease him about it later. A few days pass. The little secret of the donut box is a small, warm thing between us. I brought it up over breakfast, holding up my fingers to frame an imaginary box, and Arthur had the good grace to look sheepish. He just laughed, a great rolling sound that shook his belly, and admitted a midnight craving had gotten the better of him. I swatted his arm playfully. His appetite has always been a part of his charm, a grand and life-affirming thing. When we were younger, I worried about his size, about the strain on his heart. But the doctor says he is healthy as an ox, just a bit more of him to love. I find I agree. The warmth of that shared joke settles over the house for days. Sunday morning, the sunlight streams through the freshly cleaned kitchen windows, making dust motes dance in the golden bars of light. The air is warm and smells of cinnamon rolls baking in the oven, a scent that is pure comfort. Arthur sits at the table, reading sections of the paper aloud to me, his voice a pleasant, rumbling counterpoint to the chirping of sparrows outside. The warmth of the oven, the heat from the sun, the solid presence of my husband, it all weaves together into a blanket of profound safety. In these moments, the small aches in my shoulder and the quiet anxieties of an aging mind seem foolish, distant things. Everything is as it should be. I find myself in the sewing room, a place I retreat to for quiet contemplation. The afternoon sun is less fierce here, filtered through the leaves of the great oak in the side yard. I sit in my rocking chair, not rocking, my hands resting on a pair of Arthur's socks, the needle and thread momentarily forgotten. My hands feel strangely empty when they are not busy. The house is utterly silent, the grandfather clock inaudible from this part of the house. The only sound is the gentle whisper of my own breathing. In the stillness, I notice the taste of the air. It is dry and smells of old fabric and cedar chips, a clean, sharp taste that is different from the rest of the house. The warmth of that shared secret, however, begins to feel different. It starts with a sound and then a smell. Late one night, the groan of a floorboard from the hallway pulls me from a shallow sleep. My heart gives a single hard thump against my ribs. I lay still, listening, every muscle tensed. There is nothing more, just the hum of the house. I get up for a glass of water, and as I pass the living room, a scent catches in my throat. It is faint, almost not there at all, a sugary, glazed sweetness hanging in the air. It is not just sweet, there is an artificial note to it, like cheap vanilla extract. The air in the hallway is cool, but as I near the living room doorway, the temperature rises, becoming stuffy and warm. I poke my head into the room. Arthur is asleep in his big armchair, the television murmuring a late-night talk show to itself. The shifting blue light from the screen washes over him, making his familiar face look alien and strange. My whole body tenses, an instinctive reaction to seeing a loved one look so unfamiliar. I sniff again, but the smell is gone, replaced by the familiar scent of old books and Arthur's pipe tobacco. I stand there, my mind racing to connect the scent to something real. My first thought, of course, is that it is the donuts again. He must have had another one, and the smell is clinging to the air. But that cannot be right. The box was days ago, thrown out and forgotten. The smell was so present, so immediate, it had to have a source right here, right now. My second thought is that perhaps a donut or a piece of one had fallen from his pocket. Maybe it is lodged deep in the cushions of his armchair, slowly perfuming the room. The idea is plausible, if a bit messy. I could go over, I could check. But the thought of digging through his chair while he sleeps feels like a violation, a confirmation of a suspicion I am not ready to admit I have. What am I even suspicious of? A hidden pastry? It is utterly absurd. It must have been a phantom then. A scent from a commercial on the television, a persuasive advertisement for some bakery or sweet cereal. My tired brain, hearing the ad, simply conjured the smell to go with it. The power of suggestion. That is a logical, reasonable explanation. It is the only one that allows me to go to the kitchen, get my water, and return to bed without feeling like a fool. The next incident happens in the kitchen, my sanctuary. I am planning the week's meals, a task I have always savored. I reach for my recipe book, the heavy, leather-bound one my mother gave me, its pages filled with her familiar script and my own additions over the years. Before my hand even touches the shelf, I know it is gone, but my mind refuses to accept it. I remember it so clearly, the cracked brown leather of the cover, the satisfying heft of it in my hands. The pages smell of decades of cooking, of vanilla and cinnamon, and sometimes, faintly, of my mother's rosewater hand lotion. It is not on its shelf between the cookbooks. I check the counter. I check the pantry. A small knot of irritation tightens in my stomach. The methodical sound of my own search begins to grate on my nerves, the soft thud of cookbooks being set on the counter, the slide and rattle of tins in the pantry. My breath starts to catch in my chest. The air grows warmer as my frustration builds, a flush of heat creeping up my neck. I am meticulous about my things, especially that book. I search the entire kitchen, my movements growing more frantic. I call for Arthur. He comes in, his brow furrowed with concern. He helps me look, his large frame a clumsy, gentle presence in my space. He knocks over a canister of flour, a white cloud puffing into the air. The sound makes me flinch, a sharp jolt running through me. The fine white powder settles on everything, and the air suddenly smells chalky and dry. I must have misplaced it, I say, more to myself than to him, my voice thin. My first thought is that I must have left it in another room. The dining room, maybe, or even the bedroom if I had been reading it before sleep. But that cannot be. The book belongs in the kitchen. It has lived on that shelf for 40 years. To move it would be to break a habit as ingrained as breathing. My second thought, then, is that Arthur must have moved it. Perhaps he was looking for something himself and set it aside without thinking. But that, too, feels wrong. He reveres my cooking but holds the process itself at a careful distance. He would never touch my recipe books. To even ask him feels like an accusation, and I can already picture the wounded, concerned look that would cross his face. No, it must have been me. The doctor did mention that memory slips are a normal part of aging. I must have put it somewhere for safekeeping and simply forgotten. It is deeply embarrassing, a sign of my own failing mind, but it is the only explanation that does not involve suspicion and accusation. It is the only explanation I can bear. That evening, after the flower has been swept and the search for the book officially abandoned, Arthur is especially kind. He makes me a cup of chamomile tea, his large hands surprisingly gentle as he places the warm mug in mine. "We'll find it, Patty," he says, his voice a low, soothing rumble. "It will turn up when we least expect it." Later, he suggests we watch one of the old black and white films I love, and we sit together on the sofa, the warmth from his body, a solid, comforting presence next to mine. The television flickers, the actors' voices, a distant murmur, the scent of his pipe tobacco and the chamomile tea fills the air, a warm, safe cocoon. In the quiet comfort of the evening, my anxiety about the book and my own memory begins to feel overwrought, a foolish panic over nothing. I am safe. He is here. Everything is all right. A few days later, I am sitting in the living room listening to the rain. It is a soft, steady drumming on the roof, a peaceful sound. I am not reading, not sewing, just sitting. My hands are still in my lap, and I find myself tracing the faded floral pattern on the armchair's fabric with one finger, over and over. The air blown in from the window unit is cool and tastes faintly of ozone from the storm and the damp, rich earth of the garden. Outside the window, a steady drip from a blocked gutter provides a slow, rhythmic percussion to accompany the rain's gentler sound. A week later, I find the teacup. Arthur's teacup, the one with the crack. It is not in the kitchen cabinet where it belongs. It is on the floor in the living room, next to his armchair, tucked just out of sight. The soft clink of porcelain against my fingernail is the first sign. I bend down, my knees complaining, and pick it up. The porcelain feels cold and slick in my hand, colder than the surrounding air. The crack, that familiar, endearing flaw, seems darker today, as if something had seeped into the fine line and stained it from within. The faded bluebells look washed out under a film of sticky, amber-colored residue on the saucer. I bring it to my nose. It smells sweet, of cinnamon. But beneath the cinnamon, there is another, fainter smell. Something almost fermented, like old cider. A tremor starts in my hand, a fine vibration that makes the cup rattle against the saucer with a delicate, chattering sound. I tell myself he must have had his coffee in here and forgotten the cup. The stickiness is just from a bit of spilled sugar. It is carelessness, nothing more. I wash the cup and saucer, the hot water running over my hands, and place it back on the shelf. But as I do, a chill runs down my spine. It is not a surface cold, not a draft from an open window. It is a coldness that feels as if it is inside my bones, a sliver of ice laid against my vertebrae, making the marrow itself feel frozen and brittle. The house feels suddenly too quiet. The cold returns, not in my spine, but in the air itself. It's Tuesday, 2 weeks after the recipe book vanished. I walk into the living room to ask Arthur if he wants iced tea. He is reading the paper, the pages rustling softly. As I step past the threshold, I walk into a pocket of air so cold it feels like stepping into a meat locker. I walk into a wall of it. The skin on my face tightens first, a sudden painful tautness, as if all the moisture had been sucked away. The cold stings my nostrils. My lungs seize. The air I try to draw in is a shard of glass. The chill seeps through the thin fabric of my blouse, instantly raising goose flesh on my arms, each tiny hair standing straight up. It feels like the cold is pressing in, a physical weight. I feel it move from my skin to my muscles, making them stiff and unresponsive, and then deeper, a resonant chill that seems to find my very bones, making them ache with a deep, hollow cold. The air in this column of cold smells of nothing. It is a sterile, clean smell, like a freezer that has been left open too long, utterly alien in the humid, living scent of our house. It is centered right by Arthur's chair. I look at the window. It is closed and locked. The vent on the floor is not blowing. I ask Arthur, "Do you feel that?" My voice is a thin whisper. He lowers his paper. "Feel what, Patty?" he asks. His face is open, a picture of placid confusion. And just as quickly as it came, the cold is gone, replaced by the familiar muggy heat. I stand there trembling, the warmth of the room now feeling like a fever. It must have been a draft from the air conditioner, my mind insists, a freak malfunction. But I know that is not true. The vent is across the room and it was not blowing. There is no rational source for a column of cold so intense and so specific. My next thought is more terrifying. A mini-stroke, perhaps? A neurological event, a sensory hallucination. The doctor warned that sudden changes like this could be a sign of something serious. Yet, it felt so physical, so external. And Arthur, right in the center of it, felt nothing at all. How could my brain create a hallucination that was so perfectly located in space? It makes no sense. The final explanation my mind grasps for is the most fanciful and yet the most comforting. It was a quirk of the house. A freak atmospheric event! Something to do with air pressure and humidity! Sounds like something from a cheap science fiction novel, but it is a better thought than believing I am losing my mind or that my house has suddenly developed a malevolent intelligence. It was a fluke. It will not happen again. That night, as we lay in bed, the familiar warmth of the room feels like a blessing. The sheets are cool and smooth. Arthur, sensing the tension that still lingers in my shoulders, reaches over and begins to massage the muscle where the ache always begins. His hands are large and warm, his touch firm and sure. The heat from his palms soaks into my skin, a deep, penetrating warmth that seems to travel all the way to the bone, chasing out the last of the unnatural chill from the afternoon. His breathing is a slow, steady rhythm in the darkness, a sound I have fallen asleep to for 45 years. Here, in the safety of our bed, with his solid warmth beside me, the memory of the cold feels distant and dreamlike. I am safe here. I am with my husband. The final piece of the pattern is a phone call. It comes on a Thursday evening. The shrill, piercing ring of the old telephone in the hall makes me jump, my heart leaping into my throat. My hand is trembling as I lift the heavy Bakelite receiver. It feels cool against my hot cheek. I say, "Hello?" A man's voice, hesitant, asks, "Is Arthur there?" The voice itself is a sound of fear. It is breathy and strained. I say, "Yes, he is. Who's calling?" There is a sharp intake of breath on the other end, a sound of pure panic, and then the line goes dead. The click is followed by the low, steady hum of the dial tone. I stand in the hallway, the receiver cold against my ear, listening to the hum. A simple, wrong number, I tell myself. But that cannot be right. The man asked for Arthur by name. His reaction to my confirmation was not the polite apology of a missed dial. It was fear. My next thought is that it must be one of his old poker buddies playing some kind of childish prank. But the terror in that man's voice was not feigned. I have been a mother, a grandmother. I know the sound of real fear. So, what is left? It must be a business matter Arthur is trying to avoid, from his old contracting days, perhaps. A disgruntled customer who feels he was wronged, working himself up to complain and then losing his nerve. Yes, that is it. It has the shape of truth. It is a simple, worldly explanation with invoices and contracts and angry letters. It has nothing to do with phantom sugary smells or pockets of impossible cold. I tell myself I am being foolish. I go back to the kitchen and begin to wash the dishes, my hands moving with a comforting, practiced rhythm. I am safe. This is my home. The relief is a physical thing, a warmth that spreads through my chest and loosens the knot in my stomach. It comes in the form of Eleanor, my neighbor from across the street. She is sitting on my porch swing, a tall glass of iced tea sweating in her hand, the ice cubes clinking softly. The air is thick with the scent of jasmine and freshly cut grass, a neighbor's lawnmower buzzing in the distance. For the first time in weeks, the house behind me does not feel like it is holding its breath. The sun is warm on my skin, and the sweet tea is cold and pleasant on my tongue. Everything feels normal, blessedly normal. I saw the most peculiar thing the other night, Patricia, Eleanor says, fanning herself with a folded piece of mail. I was up late, couldn't sleep, and I saw Arthur walking down the street, clear as day, heading toward the bypass. I stop smoothing my phantom apron. My hands freeze midair. He was? I ask, my voice tight. Yes, she says, leaning forward conspiratorially. It must have been past 1 in the morning. I was surprised to see him out so late. He was walking in the direction of that all-night bakery, the one on the south side. The donut box. My mind latches onto it. It is real. The secret trips, the late-night walks. It is not some phantom of my overwrought imagination. Arthur is sneaking out to buy sweets. It is a foolish, childish secret, but it is a secret with shape and weight. I feel a surge of something that feels dangerously like joy. I am not losing my mind. For a few days, I bask in this certainty. I am weeding the petunias in the front garden, the sun warm on my back. My hands are deep in the cool, damp earth, the rich, loamy smell a comfort. I can hear the cheerful chirping of the sparrows in the bird bath. The air tastes green and alive, but the relief has started to feel thin, like a worn sheet. The questions won't stay buried. If it is just about donuts, why the elaborate secrecy? Why walk 2 miles to the south side when there is a perfectly good market just a few blocks away? It does not add up. I need to talk to Eleanor again. I go inside, my hands still dirty, and call her, the receiver slick in my palm. Eleanor, I say, about the other day, when you saw Arthur. She cuts me off. Oh, that, she says. Her voice is the first thing I notice. It is wrong. It is flat and distant, stripped of its usual gossipy warmth. It sounds like she is reading from a script. Patricia, dear, I do believe I was mistaken. It was so dark. It must have been someone else, someone who just looks like him from a distance. My old eyes play tricks on me, you know. Before I can respond, before I can ask why her voice sounds so strange, she makes a vague excuse about a pot on the stove and hangs up. The silence she leaves behind is heavy and absolute. The dial tone hums, an accusatory sound. The next day, I bake her a lemon curd tart, her favorite, a peace offering, or perhaps a bribe to get her to talk. I walk across the street, the ceramic dish warm in my hands. The curtains of her house are all drawn, every single one. I knock. The sound echoes against the wood in the unnerving quiet of her porch. I wait. No footsteps, no shuffling from within. I knock again, louder this time. Nothing. I try the doorknob. The cold, unyielding brass will not turn. It is locked. A new neighbor, Mr. Henderson, is out watering his petunias. The spray from his hose makes a gentle hissing sound. The sweet, almost funereal scent of the flowers hangs in the humid air. He sees me standing there. "Looking for Eleanor?" he calls out. I nod. "Her daughter came and got her yesterday morning," he says, adjusting the nozzle on his hose. "Packed her up in a hurry. Said she had a nasty fall, needed someone to look after her full time." A fall, so sudden. I look back at the blank, curtained windows of Eleanor's house. A cold dread, sharp and familiar, trickles down my back. It starts at the nape of my neck, a pinpoint of ice, and spreads downwards, not on my skin, but inside, a chill that makes my stomach clench and my bones feel like glass. I am alone with it now, whatever it is. Eleanor's sudden departure, her strange reversal on the phone, has taken my small island of certainty and sunk it into the sea. To question Arthur now would be to accuse him. Accuse him of what? Lying about donuts? Scaring away an old woman with a phone call? The thoughts are absurd when laid out, thin and pale in the light of day. And yet, I am the one who is absurd. I am an old woman letting her imagination run wild. Arthur is my husband. He brings me flowers from the garden. He reads to me in the evenings. He holds my hand when we walk. This is the truth I have known for 45 years. These other things, the smells and the cold spots in the missing book, they are tricks of the light, failures of an aging mind. I must hold on to the truth. I am standing in the hallway. I do not remember if I was going into the kitchen or coming out of it. My hands are smoothing my apron, a repetitive, meaningless motion. The air tastes stale, like a room that has been closed for too long. The only sound is the grandfather clock. Tick, tock. Each tick is a second of my life I have lost. Each tock is a second closer to what? My days begin to fray at the edges. The joy I once took in my kitchen has evaporated. The scent of baking bread now seems cloying. The sizzle of the frying pan an irritant. More and more, I find myself standing in the middle of a room, my hands smoothing my apron with no memory of what I came there to do. I prepare simpler meals, canned soup, sandwiches. Arthur does not complain. He eats whatever I put in front of him with his usual steady appetite. His presence, once a profound comfort, now feels like a weight. The silence in the house is punctuated only by the ticking of the clock and the rustle of his newspaper. One afternoon, while dusting the living room, I see it. The quiet hiss of my dust cloth across the polished wood of the end table is the only sound. A stain. On the dark, patterned rug, right next to Arthur's armchair, it is a small, dark patch, no bigger than my palm. It looks like a spill, perhaps coffee or tea. But it is a void in the pattern, a place where the reds and blues have been swallowed by darkness. I get a damp cloth and some soap and I scrub. I get on my hands and knees, the position making the old ache in my shoulder burn with a new intensity. I scrub until my knuckles are raw. The damp wool of the rug begins to smell, not of soap, but of something metallic, like old pennies. The stain does not lift. If anything, my efforts seem only to darken it, to work it deeper into the fibers. I tell myself it is an old stain, one I have simply never noticed before. My eyes are not what they used to be, just like Eleanor's. A few days later, I look at the stain again. A cold wave of nausea washes over me, and I put a hand to my mouth. It is larger, I am certain of it. I get down on the floor again, my heart pounding. I trace its edge with my finger. The fibers are stiff and cool. It has a distinct circular shape that was not there before. It has grown, spreading outwards like a dark bloom. I feel a frantic need to prove it, to measure it, to have some evidence that I am not inventing this. But what would I do? Draw a chalk outline around a stain on the rug, present it to my husband as evidence? I can hear his gentle, concerned voice already. "Patty, dear, are you feeling all right?" I back away from the stain. I leave the living room, pulling the door closed behind me. The warmth of the hallway feels like a lie. The house is a tomb of silence. Arthur went out hours ago. He said he was going to the hardware store. He said he needed bird seed. It is long past dark now. The grandfather clock in the hall chimes 10. Each gong is a hammer blow. Each one strikes against the quiet. I have not turned on the lights. I sit in the kitchen in the dark. My hands are folded in my lap. They are folded so tightly. The ache in my shoulder is fire. It is a sharp, insistent fire. I am waiting for something. I do not know what I am waiting for. A sound comes from the hall, a whisper of air under a door. Then the smell arrives. It is sugar, glazed and sick. It is a cloying, thick sweetness. It coats the back of my throat. Oh! Beneath it, something else. Something metallic and wrong. The smell of a bleeding tooth. It is coming from the living room. I stand up from my chair. My legs feel like a newborn foal's. I push open the living room door. The wood groans in the silence. The room is dark. So dark, a blue light flickers and jumps. The television is playing. It is playing to an empty room. The room is a block of ice. The cold hits my skin like a slap. It sinks past the skin. It sinks deep into my bones. My teeth begin to chatter, a sound I cannot control. The cold is everywhere now. It has filled the entire room. I look down at the floor. My eyes adjust to the blue light. The stain has taken over the rug. It is a great black shadow. It spreads from the base of the chair, a pool of midnight. I see something stark white. It is in the center of the pool. It is his favorite teacup. It lies on its side, waiting. The porcelain gleams in the light. The crack is a black chasm now. It is filled with the dark liquid. Red-black seeps from the crack. It joins the larger pool. The stain is not coffee. The stain is not tea. It is thick and it is dark. My eyes lift from the cup. They lift to the man in the chair. My lost recipe book is there, my mother's book, my book. It is resting on his lap. The leather cover is stained. The book is open to a page for scrapple. The thought comes as a memory, a story from the newspaper. I read it aloud to him. Bodies found on Long Island. A serial killer at work. The article called him a butcher. Fleischer, my maiden name. Fleischer means butcher in German. It was my family's book, our recipes for preserving meat, for salting, for curing the spices that vanished from my pantry. He had not thrown them out, he had used them. The sweet smell was to cover it. The other smell, the metallic one. The cold was from the chest freezer, the one he kept in the garage. Or he kept the meat. Eleanor, he must have gotten to her. He must have scared her into leaving. The man on the phone. He was warning me. He was trying to warn me. I look at Arthur. My husband. He is not sleeping in his chair. His eyes are wide open. They are staring at nothing. His face is a strange, dusky blue, a strange blue in the television's light. A half-eaten donut is in his mouth. Glazed and gleaming, it is wedged there. My husband, my Arthur, dead. The donut box is on the floor. A heart attack, a massive one. The man from the phone call. He was not warning me about Arthur. He was a victim who had escaped. He was trying to warn Arthur. The stain was not from his work. It was from him, his own body, failing him at the last. The ache in my shoulder explodes. It is a crushing weight now. It is across my entire chest. The air will not come. The flickering television screen begins to swim. The blue light smears into streaks. The room tilts on its side. I hear a sharp, cracking sound. It comes from far away. The back of my head hit the floor.